September 7th, 2009 was the kind of day kids pray to end the summer with. Blue skies, warm temperatures, and hours to go before school starts. In downtown Kennebunk, the last of the tourists were shopping and strolling along Main Street. Up on High Street, a post-lunch crowd had gathered at Dairy Queen for one last scoop of summer to cap off the afternoon. It was around 2:45 p.m. that people eating their ice cream first heard the cries for help. They appeared to be coming from under the bridge by the Cumberland Farms next to Brown Street. Once people ran over and saw what had happened, they immediately called 911. District Fire Chief Bill Van Dynes was the supervisor on call that day. Van Dynes was home, enjoying the last day of summer when he heard his pager go off.
I was here that day with my family, doing a few things, and I heard the pager go off for a subject that was trapped under a rock.
At first, many responders weren't quite sure they heard dispatch correctly. Paramedic Kevin Bakey thought the reports of a man under a boulder weren't quite right.
There's no way there's someone under a boulder. I mean, someone's stuck, with their ankle, or, things get changed as one person hears something, the second person hears something. By the time it gets to dispatch and comes back to us, it's a boulder or a truck or something.
However, when Bakey and other first responders arrived on the scene, that's exactly what they found.
Something I had never seen in my entire career was two hands, literally just the hands, and two small feet. Everything else is completely overlaid by this rock. And I barely saw the top of his head, but all I saw was just his extremities. I shook my head. I said, there's nothing we're going to be able to do here.
The man, later identified as 47-year-old Tim Donovan of Kennebunk, was trapped just above the swiftly flowing Mousom River. Carefully, firefighters made their way down to Donovan. Surprisingly, he was still conscious and able to communicate.
He was talking to us, and we started to make quick assessments on how we were going to perform the rescue. But in amongst all of that, we were faced with several problems right off the bat.
Firefighter Wayne Mathews was one of the first on the scene.
I told my paramedic that I'd get tied off and I'd go down in and I'd put the mask on him and take a cylinder down with me. So I just kind of snuck downstream a little bit, and then I worked my way back up. And when you're putting the mask on, you're looking around to see what you're getting into, what you're into, and it's all loose, gravelly, bouldery type material down in there.
Firefighter Nate Howe was out with his family when he came upon the scene.
I saw all the wreckers that were there, and I had no idea what was going on. And once I got into the scene and got up to the bridge and looked over, I realized that we had a mess on our hands.
Howe was concerned both with the site where the rescue was taking place and with the scene up on the street.
So not only are we faced with the task of lifting this huge piece of stone off of this guy, we got to do it on a steep embankment. We got to do it next to a flowing river. We've got everybody and their grandmother on the embankments watching us. So if it isn't stressful enough to know that you have to do this and do it right, you have to do this and do it right in front of the whole town.
Firefighter Eric Harrison, who has water rescue training, was tethered, given a flotation device, and sent out into the river in case other rescuers got swept into the water. Despite the cold, Harrison was more concerned with what was happening on the bank.
I knew the victim. I've known the victim since, grade school. And I was, I had some concerns for the guys that were working the patient, because the bank was so unstable.
While bystanders jockeyed for positions, rescuers were busy planning how to save Donovan. Someone from the EMS team called for Life Flight, the medical helicopter service stationed at Central Maine Medical in Lewiston, and set up a landing zone behind the Lafayette Center across the street. And Van Dynes quickly realized his team would need even more help.
Calls were quickly made to Biddeford Fire Rescue to have them respond with their heavy rescue unit.
Kennebunk Fire Captain Justin Cooper was at his day job in Biddeford when the call came in. The Biddeford crew had been heading out to a boat rescue when the Kennebunk call came through.
All of a sudden, we're getting dispatched to Kennebunk with our heavy rescue company, and all they said was entrapment near the Lafayette Center on Main Street. So We just assumed it was a very serious car accident, and that's all the information that we had when we left. And it wasn't until, we got there and I got out of the rescue with the equipment, I looked over and saw what we had.
What Cooper saw was Donovan under the rock and firefighters scrambling to secure a scene fraught with peril. That's the same scene firefighter EMT John Audley saw when he arrived.
I saw the precariousness of where the victim was. I saw some objective hazards above the victim was hanging over. When I went below into the water, how unsupported that whole scene was. It was all bad. As I've told people, unlike trainings, this rock didn't come with square corners and a handle.
By that time, Donovan's medical condition was growing more tenuous. Cooper said while rescuers fought to get the rock off Donovan, they had to make sure they did what they could to keep him alive.
It's on his chest, on his core, so blood's probably not getting to his brain, not getting to his extremities, and we have all sorts of stuff that we worry about there, especially in a prolonged extrication like that, where toxins and lactic acid and other things build up in those extremities that are not getting proper circulation. And as soon as we release that, those toxins then rapidly circulate and can cause cardiac arrest. It's pretty much a nightmare scene.
When Ralph Cresta of National Wrecker arrived on the scene, 2 other trucks had already failed to reach the boulder. But in addition to its bigger size, National's truck had something the others didn't: the ability to rotate its winch. Once the truck was in place across the bridge, though, other challenges remained.
We could only initially strap around the right side of the rock, which again is not ideal because we want it to come straight off and not go one way or the other. So then it was the thought of, okay, what can we do to start to lift this off him and then be able to get more strapping in? And anytime we do any lifting in the fire service during extrication, we always say if we lift an inch, we crib an inch. So we had a lot of wood cribbing there with us. And we also used our airbags, high pressure airbags, trying on the left side where we couldn't get strappings in, to simultaneously use these lifting bags to try and keep the boulder from rolling back on his face and his airway.
2 hours after firefighters arrived on the scene, the boulder was lifted off of Donovan.
We weren't sure what was going to happen when the color come back into his feet. I wasn't sure if he was bleeding out or what he was doing, or if he was going into shock. We didn't know. The shocker, when we lifted the rock off, he lifted one of his arms and tried to brush himself off.
Donovan wasn't out of the woods yet. Though he had use of one arm, rescuers couldn't even see the other one, buried as it was in dirt and debris.
Because we were ready to try and get him into the Stokes and get him out of there, hoping for, we're nervous too that as soon as we pull a boulder off that he is going to progress into shock now that the boulder's potentially not tamponading his injuries. And here we are, now we have to hand dig him out. We certainly can't use shovels or any other tools to dig him out because we don't know where his arm is.
Getting Donovan into the Stokes stretcher was another challenge.
And we looked at each other and we said, there's only one way to do this, is just pick him up and get him on the Stokes and get him out of here.
After 5 p.m., when the chill of evening was just beginning to creep into the air, Donovan was transferred to an ambulance waiting on the street level. There, he was stabilized and then driven around the corner to the Life Flight helicopter that transported him to Maine Medical Center in Portland. Less than a month later, he was back home again. Kennebunk Fire Chief Steve Nichols was out of town on the day of the rescue, but said he knew everyone was in good hands with Bill Van Dynes on the job.
He did a fantastic job that day. One of his first calls was to me. I was on vacation that week, and he called me up to let me know what was going on, kept me well abreast of everything that was happening. I told him that I was an hour and a half away. If he wanted me to come down, I'd be more than happy to do that. And he says, "No, Chief, I think I got everything under control. I'll just keep you informed of what's going on." So.
All told, more than 40 firefighters, paramedics, and other rescue workers came together to save Donovan that day. In November, KFR was recognized by the Mid-Coast EMS Council for having made the call of the year. And in December, it received the prestigious Liberty Mutual Firemark Award. But for its members, the true reward is in saving a life.
maybe someday down the road there will be something like this, but you know, it wasn't just the town of Kennebunk, it was Biddeford coming over, it was Kennebunk Port coming up, I think Wells was there. I mean, it's everybody putting their thoughts together and coming up with a solution.
Well, these are fellow human beings, you know. That's why we're doing this, you know, protect lives and protect property. Pay back to the community.